Welcome to myCPE Shorts. Today we are going to be discussing the Employee Retention Credit. Specifically, we're going to go into 3 different ways that we can qualify for the Employee Retention Credit for 2021. Now, the Employee Retention Credit, I think, is one of the most favorable business credits that we've really seen in a long time. For 2020, the credit's 50% of wages up to $10,000 per employee. For 2021, it jumps even higher. It goes to 70% of wages per employee at $10,000. So a very large credit. If you pay $10,000 to an employee, and it goes per quarter too, so you can get up to $21,000 per employee. The numbers add up really quick. I've prepared over, I want to say close to $33 million worth of credits now, ranging from, a couple $10,000 all the way up to the largest one I've seen so far is $4.3 million in credits. So it's a really effective, really great credit. In order to qualify, we have 3 different ways basically for 2021. The first way is a drop in gross receipts. With a drop in gross receipts, it has to be a 20% drop in the same quarter compared to 2019. For example, at quarter 1, if you have a drop of 50% compared to 2019 quarter 1, that qualifies you. It's more than 20%, you qualify. 2021 also has an interesting provision where if you don't have that 20% drop in gross receipts, they have a look back. So say you have a 25% drop in quarter 1, but you don't have that in quarter 2. You're allowed a look back in quarter 2 back to quarter 1. So since your quarter 1 qualified, you automatically qualify for quarter 2. The same thing kind of goes for quarter 1. If you don't have enough 20% drop in quarter 1, but you had it in quarter 4 of 2020, you will qualify for quarter 1 of 2021 because you're going to be able to look back 1 quarter. For 2021, the credit is only available for most firms for quarter 1, 2, and 3. We'll talk about how you get quarter 4 for a select recovery business. But that's the main way when we're talking about our drop in gross receipts for a qualified employee retention credit business. So that's the first way. The second way is a full or a partial government shutdown. Now, hard concept. Full shutdowns, I think, are really easy to kind of understand and kind of get to. It's like, hey, the government says I can't do anything. That's a full shutdown. Really easy, really simple. We can point to that fast. No issues there, right? I think the partial shutdown is a hard one. So the way I like to do it is I like to talk to my clients about restaurants because everyone's eating at a restaurant, right? So just kind of think back during COVID. We had all restaurants, depending on your state, were shut down. You couldn't go to a restaurant, right? That is a full shutdown. They qualify. Then the government says, hey, you can open, but only outdoor dining. Well, you're not open how you normally would open and fully operating, so you're considered partially shut down. Next, they said, hey, okay, things are getting better. You can have indoor dining, but your indoor dining has to be spaced out 6 feet. For most restaurants, that means they had to remove tables. If they are removing tables like that, partially shut down because they're not operating at 100%. Partially shut down. Then they say, okay, you can just reopen and do whatever you want. Then they're fully open, and that's when it stops. The employee retention credit only goes until the date that the government order is done. Once the government order is done, no more employee retention credit. It's even if it's in the middle of a quarter. You don't get the full quarter. You just get it to that date. So that's the general idea on partial shutdowns and how they operate. Now, there's a couple other ways in there with partial shutdowns that you'll see people talk about. The supply chain issues is another one. I see a lot of people trying to qualify people for the employee retention credit under the supply chain, saying, hey, there's a supply chain, they're going to qualify because they couldn't get stuff. That's not true either, because what has to happen, if you're going to point to the supply chain, you have to point to a government order. And really, there weren't too many government orders affecting the supply chain. We might get some cases out in the future, I think, that will maybe clarify this a little bit. Because, yeah, I mean, maybe you could point to when we had the issues in, say, California with all the ports being backed up. Maybe that was due to a government shutdown because people couldn't come in to COVID. Maybe. I don't agree with that right now. I think that's a little bit aggressive of a position. So I'm taking that a little bit more conservative. So the way that I look at it, I give 2 examples to my client. COVID started and you couldn't find toilet paper, right? Now, why couldn't we find toilet paper when COVID started? Was it because of government order? No, it was because people went out and they bought like 90 different rolls of toilet paper. So the supply chain issue of toilet paper was not a government order issue. It was just people being dumb, right? On the flip side, we had, I think it was pools was one. Fiberglass was really hard to come by, and the reason why it was the government said, hey, people that have fiberglass and do things with fiberglass, we need you to shift your production to PPE. We need building ventilators, stuff like that. And there was a government order asking them to do that. So pool companies, hot tub companies, they could not get their supply of stuff in because they didn't have the fiberglass in order to build what they needed to do. They have a government order saying, hey, you had to convert, what you were doing from your pools, hot tubs, all that over to these PP&E. That qualifies you because you have a government order you can point to the reason why your supply chain struggled. That is fine to do, and that is perfect. So that is another thing that we want to keep in mind when we talk about partial government shutdowns. I wanted to throw that out there because that's one where we see people being very aggressive on those stances. So after that, we also have the recovery startup businesses. Now, recovery startup businesses are interesting. It's a fixed date. It's February 15th, 2020. So basically, if you started your business February 15th, 2020 or later, you are considered a qualified startup business. Your average annual gross receipts need to be at least less than, I believe it's $1 million per quarter, but honestly, most people are going to qualify for because this is the average annual that you look at. I haven't seen anyone not qualified for that. So usually, as long as you're starting after 2/15/20, you're going to qualify. With that, it is a firm date. If you started 2/14/2020, you do not qualify. So 2/15 is that date. I had one person arguing with me the other day about, hey, I solicited, a contract on 2/10, but we didn't sign the contract till 2/20. That means I started business 2/20. It's like, no, you started soliciting your business prior to 2/15. You're not going to qualify. If you qualify as a qualified startup business, you're able to qualify automatically for Q3 and Q4 of 2021. Those are the only ones you automatically qualify for. You can still qualify for Q3 based on a drop of gross receipts if you need to or whatever. But those will automatically qualify you, and it's going to be a $50,000 max per quarter credit that you can take. So those are really the 3 ways that we're going to be able to qualify for the employee retention credit. Again, it's going to be in 2021, it's going to be a drop in gross receipts, 20% compared to 2019, same quarter. Or we had the prior year look back quarter. Second, you can have a government shutdown. It could be full or partial. One thing I didn't talk about, I do want to point out, when we talk about partial shutdowns, the part of your business that's shut down has to be 10% or more. So I want to throw out the restaurants as an example too. I'm here in Virginia. We have Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach has a lot of outdoor dining restaurants. So when the government says, hey, you can have outdoor dining, and all of a sudden, outdoor restaurants reopen and they never had any indoor seating, guess what? They are fully open. But if your outdoor dining was, not 90% of your business and your indoor dining that was shut down was more than 10% of your business, then it's going to qualify. When we talk, might hear this 10% of your business thrown out a decent bit. And I think there's some confusion on that. 10% of your business means prior to COVID, was it usually 10% of your gross receipts or 10% of the hours that you worked? And that is going to be this more than nominal test, because to be a partial shutdown, more than a nominal part of your business has to be affected by that shutdown. And that's that 10% test. It doesn't have to be a 10% of drop in gross receipts, nothing like that. It is just, was the part that's shut down typically 10% or more of your business? And that's based on hours, and it's based on gross receipts and compared prior to COVID. So we have that. And then again, the last way to do it is this qualified startup business. February 15th, 2020 is your key date, not before that date. Anything after, you are good. Anything before, you are not. So that's it for this myCPE short. Have a good day.